Hey, hey, hey. It's Filter Free Friday, y'all. Listen, I am so glad y'all here. You know, I need to be getting ready for this brunch over there at the Metropolitan Community College, but here we are. If you are still interested in coming, it's the Women's History brunch, and registration is still open as far as I understand. I was going to look and see if I could provide y'all with the link. But in 2016, when I started my business, I was uh, I was sued. I was sued for my own work, and I couldn't believe it. In fact, I don't think I actually knew that you could just sue somebody for anything. Um, and then it was on the person who was accused. It's on them to like fix it. What was interesting was that before I started my business, I was on unemployment for a couple of months because I did not have a solution. Um, I had gotten, I got fired on a Thursday, but I had 3 clients by Tuesday. But if you are an entrepreneur, you know, just because you got a client don't mean they've paid yet. In fact, we had to schedule their event and then they were paying after. So I had a couple months there where I was on unemployment. And let me tell you, that was an empathy building exercise. Going down there to the office, the unemployment office, and having them have somebody help me with my resume when I had been teaching resume building classes for inroads for years, was quite a humbling experience. But anyway, I got 3 clients. The first one, I paid their bill. And what was fascinating about it is this organization is now out of business, but it was um, a 40-year-old Black manufacturing facility in Detroit, Michigan. And the owner and the owner's daughter and owner's niece just basically listened to my story and were like, hey, we're going to keep doing business with you. That's what they decided. And what was interesting about that is that that first check I got was like 20 grand. And there were going to be more that were coming. And I was like, okay, super excited. But I mean, as you know, if you've been out of work and on unemployment for a while, much of that money needs to go to things that were supposed to be paid that did not get paid, and mortgage kind of things. And so I get this letter in the mail that tells me that I'm being sued on 27 counts, and they were all things that were utterly ridiculous. Like, one of the counts, for example, was that I could not use the words diversity and inclusion. Another one of the counts was that this content that I had created with a friend at Hallmark several years before I even started working at this place was that this information was hers. Now, what I'm grateful for is that all of my work has been trademarked and copywritten when necessary. Thanks you, Jane Walton, for telling me all about that. But here's the thing: when someone sues you in federal court, that lawyer ain't cheap. When I finally got a lawyer to take my case, it was $25,000. Why am I bringing that up today? Because Chris Hernandez sued the city of Kansas City. And if you're not from around here, he is a storied journalist and has had a lengthy career in media. And according to Chris, he was asked to lie to the media and then was fired because he would not do so. As such, he sued the city, and specifically the city manager, Brian Platt, and won. And yesterday was awarded $900,000 and several other restitution kinds of things because of what was happening to him. Now, here's what's interesting: there's another case that's going on just like that. And there are many stories that happen just like that. But had it not been for the client who paid me right away, I wouldn't have had $25,000 to fight an unlawful lawsuit. Uh, I guess I shouldn't say unlawful. Everything that's illegal is not wrong. How about I just say it was wrong? And I believe everyone knew that it was wrong, but somebody can just sue you, right? And be wrong, and or do you wrong. And if you don't have the money to fight back, you're just kind of screwed. You're just kind of screwed. So I am so grateful that the people who are being mistreated are actually fighting back from a legal standpoint. But here's what's interesting about even that: I sit on a board whereby we had discussion about people being litigious and not necessarily wanting litigious people on our board. And what I think is interesting about that is, what do you do when someone is treating you unfairly? And what I'm seeing right now on the national stage is that most people think that what you're supposed to do when people are treating you unfairly is to retreat, is to lack courage, is to be afraid, is to move on, is to put your head down and try not to get hit by any strays. And I understand that, but that is absolutely fear-based leadership. And I know that it is privilege that allows people to be able to fight back. And when you don't have that privilege, that sometimes it's difficult. But here's what I want to talk about today on this specific Women's History Month, Filter Free Friday. Oh, by the way, I got an event tomorrow where I got to wear purple, and y'all know I'm not buying anything. I know we are doing the Target boycott right now. For those of you who are against what's happening, I'm taking a page after the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's book and saying we shouldn't be buying anything. That consumerism, materialism, all lead to unchecked capitalism. And so therefore, if you don't need it, don't buy it. So one of my girlfriends loaned me her lavender coat so I could be cute at this purple event tomorrow because I didn't have nothing to wear. But here's what's interesting. A couple weeks ago, I was listening to Women in Construction, and they were sharing with us horrible stories of sexual harassment. They were sharing horrible stories of not getting work because a man is the breadwinner for his family and therefore needed the extra work. They were telling horrible stories about not being given the kinds of work that demanded more dollars, even though they were qualified and capable. And while they were talking, a lawyer said to them, well, it's not illegal to do XYZ. And I think I get stuck on that because everything that's legal is not right. And everything that is illegal is not wrong. You know, slavery was legal. Beating your wife was legal. And I think it's fascinating because the same person that was talking to these women in construction about what was not illegal, you let somebody treat her unfairly, and she's going to be screaming at the rafters about how things need to be changed. And it could be as simple as not getting the lunch she wanted. Okay. And when I think about the empathy revolution, it is so difficult to have an empathy revolution when people are hypocritical. You see, it was just 2 years ago. I was sitting in a barbershop and someone said to me, hey, who's taking care of your husband while you on the road? And I just wonder, how many times has a man ever been asked who's taking care of your wife while you're on the road? And it's a beautiful example. You know, people will have all kinds of reasons why they believe that Vice President Kamala Harris lost, if she lost. They have all kinds of reasons why they believe she lost. But what you hear in the back channels, if you happen to be a woman, you know exactly why she lost. Because I'm sitting in a barbershop with almost all people of the same race. The only difference between me and them is that I'm a woman and I am being discriminated against. But you put me in a situation where I'm with all women and we are, and there happens to be a lesbian woman in the group. What kind of situation is she going to have to deal with? As in the primary speaker for the women in construction and what she was experiencing. It was almost like, why did you pick a job in that space if you didn't want this to happen to you? It is sad, actually. And if by chance I am, I don't know, in space with people who are educated, you'll hear things that people will say about folks being dumb. And this one is so normalized that we don't even think nothing about it. Just watch what people post about folks who don't read or don't know what's happening in in the world. Listen, Keisha, I'm gonna be in my my purple tomorrow, girl, because you know I ain't buying nothing. So I'm really grateful for my friend for letting me borrow her lavender coat. Yeah. That ain't gonna show off my gains I've been having in the gym, but I'm gonna still do it. And here's the work that I think that we all need to do. I am the guest speaker at Oasis International for Sunday morning service that starts at 10:15 in Raytown, Missouri, Sunday, if you can make it. And I am going to be talking about grow and go in God and lining that up with what it looks like when we tell our stories and we tell our stories about how we have been oppressed. Make sure we're evaluating our heart and also looking at how we are oppressing others when we are in positions of power, right? Right? Like we have to do that. We have to do that because when you understand, uh, Dr. Marsh, thank you so much for the book, James. I don't have it here on my desk because I have finished it. Percival Everett was masterful in that body of work. And I believe that when people read books like that, it helps you understand everything that is going on in the country today. Because let me tell you, I can only talk about corruption in my city, and I can only talk about corruption in my city to a certain point. Because I do have a job. I think sometimes people think this job I do is a hobby. By the way, I love what I do. If you have some suggestions, I'm open to your best suggestions for how when you love what you do, and people think it's a hobby because you love it, what are your best suggestions for how to help people understand that no, that's your job. That's how you get paid, and that's how you make payroll. Anyway, y'all help give me your best suggestions for that. But let me just say that I was in the room when we were hearing about what happened to Chris Hernandez, because Chris Hernandez used to be the PR person, and Chris, forgive me if I'm using the wrong language, for the Human Rights Commission. I was appointed to the Human Rights Commission. We heard story after story after story about construction at the airport and how what was put in the agreement was that there would be Black contractors on this project, not Black workers, Black contracts, meaning Black owned businesses would have contracts as part of this work. All the people who were pointing out that that wasn't happening, interestingly enough, all got fired. And when I'm in the room talking about what happened, and listen, I can't tell you what to do. I can't tell you what to think. I got a text message with several of them asking me what I think about what happened to Mr. Platt. Here's what I can tell you. Person after person who brought up unfairness ended up being gone. And we found a way to make them be gone. And we found a way to use the media to make it look like they were the wrong ones. Because when you're in positions of power, you have the ability to do that. And if you want to fight back, there's a couple things you got to have: time and money, because folk will bury you in paperwork and legal documents. Because why? It's legal for them to do so, no matter how wrong they are. My son just lost a lawsuit in Kansas City, Kansas. He was at an apartment complex, Mission Road Studios, where it was our agreement that when he came back to Kansas City during the pandemic, that we were, because he wanted to stay out in LA because he was at USC. But I'm like, dude, if class is virtual, why am I paying LA rent? He didn't want to live here. Okay, fine. So he's at one of the cheapest places for him to live here in town, no problem. But at one point, it was like below 0 degrees in Kansas City, and the boy didn't have heat for what was like 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, or something like that. So he went through the entire legal process of submitting his paperwork and saying that basically he was moving. We did all the work. Zancan came out and helped to make sure that that place was back to the point it was supposed to be when he got there. In fact, it was better than it should have, better than what it was when he got there. And they would not, said they were going to give him a security deposit back and did not. We go to small claims court and win. They take it up to appellate court. Appellate court, now you need a lawyer. So now we're paying for a lawyer. And Khalid owns his own business too. So we got time for this. We decide to fight it. They tried to settle for some ridiculous amount, less than the deposit and less than those 2 months where he didn't have heat, and Khalid wanted to go forward with it. I'm like, "Man, I don't know, because I just I've been in black skin for a long time, right? So I'm like, man, I don't know. I didn't even know about my lawsuit. I was like, how am I win a lawsuit in Nebraska with my little black skin? But didn't God do it? We lost that lawsuit. The judge decided that it wasn't illegal for him not to have the tenant, the landlord was not trying to kick him out by not providing heat. We even had a code enforcement agent come over and look at it, but that person wasn't willing to come to court to testify. So there we were. Out of all the money that we paid to the lawyer, out of all the money that we paid for while he was there, listen, these systems are corrupt. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is because people think that the folks who are standing up to corrupt systems are the ones who are the problem. They do. That's what they think. But here's what's as true or more true. There are so many more cases that we don't even know about. I was looking at social media last night, trying to see who else was talking about the Brian Platt city manager situation. Other people coming forward talking about they were fired unfairly because they were standing up for either black people or brown people. But here's what I just want us to think about when we consider how we can stop and heal. When someone does something to us, the work we have to do is to heal from whatever trauma that is. Don't allow that thing to be the bane of your existence. In fact, me being fired, me being sued, me being I mean, you think of anything, everything that has ever happened to me has prepared me to be able to do the work I love today. And I believe that, while I don't think God gives us certain challenges, I do believe that God can use those challenges to help us move forward. That's one. Our work is to heal. Too many of us got these thorns in our side, and we just living with the thorn in the side and just expecting people not to touch it. It's one of the things that I struggle with as this conversation about mental health moves forward. I'm not a practitioner, so I'm not qualified to tell you what the issue is. I just know folks walking around all day, every day, talking about how they need to protect their peace. Y'all, life gonna happen. And yes, you need to have peace. And when life happens, where's your resilience and grit, though? Where's the space for that? Because right now, everybody laying down and protecting their peace ain't gonna be the thing, right? Chris Hernandez saying, I'm gonna protect my peace at all costs. No, I'm sure it was terrible in these 2 years that he's been fighting this case. I'm sure of it, even with very expensive lawyers. Here's where the work has to happen. When you are in the group with power, how you showing up? Because see, that's not in the heal from. Because you haven't healed, you blowing your pain through other people, and you need to stop it, sugar. Stop it. Because I know at least a dozen men who voted against Kamala Harris purely because she has a vagina. Know where they are now? So silent. While the man talking about securing Palestine and buying Greenland and changing the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America and 50% of IRS workers being laid off and $800 billion cut to Medicaid. Like, because Kamala Harris has a vagina. Where they at now? Real quiet. Real quiet. You know why? Because in every single group, no matter the group, there's a range of skill, talent, and ability and capability in every group. And here we are now. And now that we're here, the plan that is being instituted and implemented was completely laid out in the document Project 2025. Eric Wesson, editor for the paper The Next Page Kansas City, told me that folks were saying, why didn't we tell them about Project 2025? Why don't you listen? Because if you listen to even one speech from Vice President Kamala Harris, she told you. And we up here talking about, if we wasn't talking about the fact that she was a woman, we had some issue with the fact that she was a prosecutor. If we didn't have some issue with the fact that she was a prosecutor, we had some issue with the fact that she was biracial. If we didn't have some issue with the fact that she was biracial, we didn't believe that she was Black enough. Didn't matter that she went to an HBCU, that she was a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, that she's a member of the Lynx. Didn't matter. Didn't matter. And now, here we are. You know, Dr. Dorothy Height told me, gosh, it feels like almost 15 years ago. We are taking for granted the civil rights and human rights that we have. And we need courage to stand up. And we need to be real careful about saying things like we are not our ancestors. Yeah, you're not. Listen to one interview from anybody during the civil rights movement, and you will see you are not. You ain't on the front lines. You ain't. Your kids not part of the children's movement. Like, what? You are not. You are not. And when we acknowledge how we show up every day and what we are willing to do and the courage we lack, we will show up with the kind of empathy necessary in order to do the right thing collectively. Because let me tell you what, this ain't gonna happen as individuals. It ain't. I'm watching what's happening in my city here in the Northland right now. Our homicide numbers are up for 2024. I mean 2025. I'm so sad about it because in 2024 our homicide numbers were down about 20%. It's March. And we up, baby. But guess what? Oak Park hasn't had a single homicide this year. Santa Fe, one homicide this year. These are the most violent neighborhoods in Kansas City. You know what's driving those numbers up? All homicides that are worked by North Patrol. If you in Kansas City, have you heard about this? Have you seen any camera crews out there with white families in the street crying? Have you seen any prayer vigils on the corner of North Oak and Vivian? Have you seen anybody on the news saying, where are the white parents? Have you seen anybody saying that these white people don't pray enough? No, because when white people are victims of violence, when white people are perpetrators of violence, it's individual acts. When Black people do stuff, then we consider it part of, it's just, just how they was raised, just who they are as people. And I'm bringing that racial example up because that's how we work. That's how we act around gender. That's how we act around sexual orientation. That's how we act around religion, veteran status, personality type. Sometimes people are like, I don't do this personality type stuff. Listen, I would argue that extroverts are the more privileged group. And we can have a whole conversation about that, but not today, because I do have to get dressed. I need to be out this house in about 30 minutes, and I need to look amazing because I'm the keynote speaker. And during COVID, though, all of a sudden, introverts were in the majority. All of our meetings had to be virtual. Most of our communication had to be written because we couldn't see each other. And then everything started to be, that could be email, that could be email, that could be email. So much to the point that now we believe you don't have to meet with people at all. Listen, as human beings, we like to see each other. And those of you who say that you don't, have you ever had a long distance relationship? Have you ever had a parent who was in ICU, but they were so sick you couldn't get in there to see them? Have you ever known somebody who was in prison who you'd like to talk to from time to time? If you have, then you understand what I mean. The in-person and virtual is not the same. But we then started to demonize extroversion. It don't matter what it is. Our thing to do is to whatever group we not a part of, we take that pain we hold on to and don't want to heal and push it through others. And all I'm asking is how about we stop? I gotta get dressed. I could go on forever and ever. It's Filter Free Friday, y'all. We got work to do.